That's awesome. I thought that intro was going to end about 5 times, but that's a great one. That might be my favorite one yet.
Yeah, it might be. That might be my favorite one because during that whole entire minute, I was doing some last minute preparation. Realized I hadn't done a couple things, so yeah, that's why it was a little long. Jacob, week 3, how are we feeling?
Week 3 in the books, and we're feeling great. We're feeling great. We're doing this episode 4, and this is the first time I get to sit here after my favorite team wins a game. So, boy, the Bengals got on the right end of that one, and week 3 was much better.
Yeah. Bengals get a win. I think most of us here in Cincinnati feel pretty good about that. I think not just that win for the Bengals fans. Ravens losing was a huge deal. Now we are only really a game and a half back from the rest of the AFC North. So that's awesome. There was also a lot of just really fun football to watch. The Miami game was really fun to watch. The Buffalo game was a bit of a blowout, but if you really like blowouts, those are all fun to watch. The Ravens game was really fun to watch. Overtime, just a back and forth sort of old fashioned type of game. A lot of good football this weekend.
Yeah, no, it was a great weekend, and we saw it start on Thursday night with the Giants and the Niners. The Niners fell 12-30, an 18-point loss to the Niners. And Casey, we kind of called that one. The Giants' offense looked stagnant without Saquon Barkley. That Niners' defense was stout, and I think it kind of went the way most people expected it to.
Yeah, and the weird part was they were like kind of hanging around for a while. It didn't really stretch apart until the second half. The Giants were
Yeah,
right there with the 49ers, and I was thinking to myself, like, man, maybe I was wrong about Daniel Jones. No, Danny
we'll get into
Nichols
the
is more like it.
Giants and what their offense looks like a little bit later. But Casey touched on another game that means a lot to all of us Bengals fans. The Colts beat the Ravens in overtime, 22-19. Casey, is Minshew mania all the way back? Is Gardner Minshew an NFL starting quarterback?
Minshew Mania. What a time that was. I think I think the Colts are just better than we thought they were. They have some pieces that on defense just are the difference. I think that front seven, when they're healthy, they're a pretty darn good defense. Despite there being a bunch of nobodies in their secondary, it just doesn't matter. They keep teams close, at least most teams so far in this season. And, you know, offensively, I mean, we've had faith in Pittman, Pierce. Their tight end group is pretty solid. And last year, their offensive line was like, it was a very weird year for them because years prior, they were pretty solid. They were a pretty good group. And then all of a sudden last year, they were like one of the worst in the league. This year, they're not that much better, but they're not as horrible as they were last year. And, you know, they've had some solid quarterback play this season. Anthony Richardson, when healthy, has been playing well. Gardner Minshew has been playing good enough to win ball games. And they actually have a bit of a run game without Jonathan Taylor. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, and they should be getting Jonathan Taylor back here soon if everything stays according to plan with the 4-week pup. And in my opinion, yeah, I think the Ravens are just hurt. I think the Ravens are facing a lot of injuries, both on the offensive line and with their weapons, and on the back end of their defense. And I think that reared its ugly head on Sunday, and the Colts got the win. But I expect this Ravens team to find their own pretty soon once they get key pieces back. And all I have written below this next game is wow, Casey. The Dolphins beat the Broncos 70-20, a 50-point win, the most points scored in an NFL game in any of our lifetimes. What a game. Just an offensive masterclass by the Dolphins, and the Broncos proved that Sean Payton hiring was not enough to turn everything around after a disastrous season last year. The Dolphins are rolling. That's a scary team in the AFC.
Yeah. I have it written down there. 1966. You know, they didn't really know what the forward pass could truly do back in those days. And that surprised me that there was a team that scored 70 points back then. It's a long, long time. A long, long time. And for a team to put up 70, he basically had the chance to break the record. Ended up taking a knee. He was in field goal range, McDaniels was.
Personally, not a fan of that one. I saw some people applauding McDaniels for being a good sport. At that point in the game, you've already hung 70 points on your opponent. Being a good sport, that ship has sailed a long time ago. Break the record. Put your name in the history books. I would have kicked the field goal. I wish he would have.
Yeah, I mean, you're right there. It's one field goal. I would have done it. And, it was also a bit of I won't say revenge game, but McDaniels was part of the Broncos organization way back when. I think he was like a ball boy. And I don't know his entire backstory, but I know that he didn't stick around for the Broncos organization. So that to me might have been maybe something had to do with that. But in all honesty, I think this team is super explosive. Denver is just not as good as they used to be anymore. That defense is not the same. Who do you really blame? Russ? The coaching? Organization? There's just a lot of blame to go around for what happened last week. And they unfortunately get to play another stink team in the Bears this week. So Broncos are irrelevant at this point. Let's move on to the next game. The next game being the other irrelevant team in my mind, the Browns versus the Titans. Cleveland just absolutely dismantled the Titans. There's a clip that we'll show and get to later that, I mean, it's so hard to defend Myles Garrett, and he was just eating their lunch all day. Browns win 27-3. What are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, that Browns defense has been record-setting through the first 3 weeks of the season. I know we're going to get into them a little bit later, but this looked like the Deshaun Watson that we expected when the Browns signed him. It was probably his best game in 3 years or so, and I know he didn't play, so there's not a whole lot to compare it to, but he didn't look like the Deshaun of old last year when he stepped in for the Browns. So it was good to see him back to Deshaun Watson as a football fan. He's fun to watch. He's good for the game. So I hope he can keep this up in the sense of, playing some good football. Next game we had was Patriots and the Jets, and you said that the Titans were irrelevant. Well, Casey, I think both these teams might be irrelevant. The Jets with Zach Wilson are just absolutely ludicrous. The fact that Robert Saleh keeps saying that he gives them the best chance to win, he has to know that's a lie. Zach Wilson goes out there and just looks incapable for 60 minutes. I mean, Casey, the Jets just don't have anything to be excited about.
Yeah, they're irrelevant for the wrong reasons. It's because both teams are bad, and Mac Jones just can't stay out of trouble. I mean, there's just something there that, we'll get into that part later. Can't wait for that one. We'll do a little box court and see if he's truly guilty or not. But Mac Jones might be the NFL's dirtiest player, which is really crazy to think about. I'll tell you what was really dirty, though. What the Bills did to Sam Howell and the Commanders, that was just dirty. I went back and watched it. 16-0 in the fourth quarter. This game was close, or I say close, but it was manageable for the Commanders. All they had to do was score, and they're in that ball game. Didn't happen for them. They create 4 turnovers.
Yep, 4 interceptions for my guy Sam Howell. I mean, it was upsetting to watch. I've been very high on Sam Howell all year, and through the first 3 weeks, he seemed to have been proving me right, playing some really good football, and then he makes a couple really bad mistakes, throwing 4 interceptions against the Bills this weekend. And you say it's in reach before that 16-0 third quarter, but boy, the Commanders couldn't move the ball at all. You knew they needed to score points to tie that game up to get back into it, and there was never a moment where I felt confident in that. But the Bills, I think we all overreacted after week 1. That team seems to be rolling. Josh Allen is the Josh Allen we all know, and that offense looks legit.
Yeah, Von Miller might be coming back soon. Watch out.
That team could get really scary really fast. Both of our darling young quarterbacks didn't look great this week. The next game, Falcons 6, Lions 20. We'll start with the Lions because I know Casey has some thoughts on the Falcons offense. I think the Lions look legit. The Falcons, seemed like a pretty good team through the first 3 weeks of the season, and the Lions didn't really have much trouble with them. That offense, when Jared Goff can stay upright, is very good. It runs through Amon-Ra St. Brown. He, has another double-digit catch game, and yeah, I'm really confident in that offense. Casey, your Falcons.
Let me talk a little bit about the Lions before I get into the Falcons, because Oh, the Falcons, they just disappointed me so much. Sam Laporta, who was a target for the Bengals to possibly get as a tight end prospect in the draft, he looks like he could be a top 5 tight end in this league. He's been just absolutely dominating so far. Great pickup for them. That's their number 2 guy. And then Jahmyr Gibbs, he didn't have like the greatest day, but it felt like they knew, or it felt like the Lions were up against the Falcons stacking the box. That's what it felt like to me. I know that's not probably what happened, but Jahmyr Gibbs just didn't get loose this time. The Falcons defense held them to 20 points, one of the better offenses in all the league. But they couldn't get anything going offensively. And it's really hard to get anything done offensively when you are sacked as many times and under pressure as many times as Desmond Ridder was that game. And it was bad. It was really bad. I mean, I thought the Falcons offensive line was much better than that. Turns out they're just really good at mauling people. They're really good run blockers, not much to say in the pass blocking department. And you know, that's probably my fault, just not doing enough research into this team. I mean, I've done a lot of research into this team, but it's just wasn't I had too much of a biased analysis going into it. I'll put it like that. This makes me a little bit more hesitant with the Falcons. I think they have a really good. They have a decent defense. I think they have a really good running game, but until they can actually protect Desmond Ridder, I mean, he had a decent game. It wasn't like decent for his standards. General managing, decent, but you can't do much when you're getting sacked that many times, when you're behind the sticks, when your whole entire offensive identity is to run the football and you're getting stuffed repeatedly. You're going to have a tough time. So,
yeah, and they definitely did. They lost 20-6. That offense didn't look good at all. The Saints got out to a great lead there, 17 to, I believe, 0 against the Packers. And Jordan Love brings them all the way back. Did the Packers find another dog in Jordan Love? Are they just going quarterback to quarterback, Favre to Rodgers to Love, and they're not going to miss a beat? Jordan Love seems like he has that thing moving a little bit down there. You know, these back-to-back weeks, we've seen him slip and fall inexplicably on the field. Once he gets that figured out, I think he's a pretty good quarterback.
yeah, I think I'd have to agree with you. I mean, he's right on the cusp. That's what I would say. He's right there. And he's doing it without Christian Watson. And who knows what that will look like when he comes back. I think Aaron Jones was a little banged up during that game too. Don't quote me on that. But
Aaron Jones didn't play. So Aaron Jones and Christian Watson are supposed to be back this week for the first time in 2 weeks. So we haven't really seen Jordan Love with the full wealth of his weapons in that offense.
Or Bakhtiari. Or
Bakhtiari.
Yeah,
sure.
They've had some injuries on the offensive line. But what really sets this team above and what people forget is that they have a pretty good, darn good defense. A really darn good defense that, you know, when they're all said and healthy and rolling, they look like a top 10 defense. So kudos to the Packers managing to squeak by. I mean, I kind of got lucky if you ask me, but sometimes you need a little luck. And I'll tell you who was super, super unlucky. I'm going to go a little out of order, Jacob. I hope you don't mind. Chargers. They get lucky because the Vikings, they just don't know how to convert on first down. They don't know how to hold on to the ball. They continue to just shock me on how badly they just take care of the football. They just can't. They just seem to want to give their opponents more chances than they deserve. Vikings fall at the very end of this ball game, 28-24. What are your thoughts, Jacob?
Yeah, no, that Vikings offense, we expected it to be a lot like what we saw last year, and they have not been able to replace Dalvin Cook. That was by far the best game by Alexander Mattison as the lead back. Justin Jefferson gets 149 yards, 1 yard short of becoming the first receiver ever to start the season with 3 straight 150-yard games. But it still wasn't enough. That defense did not make the jumps that we expected this year or they needed to make. And yeah, the Vikings just don't get me excited. And 0-3, I think their season is over.
Yeah, it's definitely over. And I'll tell you what, a team that is in jeopardy of their season being over, the Jaguars, man. They go down against the Texans 37-17. Are you surprised?
I'm more surprised with the Jaguars than I am with the Texans here. I thought the Jaguars were going to take a step this season. We've seen them struggle with these bad teams for what feels like years. I thought this was the year that the Jaguars really planted their flag in the AFC South and said, hey, look, the Titans are gone. This is our division now. Well, that hasn't been the case. The Jaguars just whooped them 20 points. That's not a close game. I mean, there was no point in this game where you're confident in the Jaguars taking the lead or even winning. And that just shows me that Trevor Lawrence is a little bit further away than we might have all expected after last year.
Yeah, and I think CJ Stroud's a pretty darn good quarterback too. Let's give him some kudos. He's not turned the ball over, and that's very surprising. I think he's on pace to break the rookie record for amount of pass attempts without a turnover. So kudos to him, especially when there's not really a whole lot of offensive threats on that team. I think too, the Jags, they're dealing with some injuries on the offensive line. That might have something to do with it. But like I said, don't count out this Texans D line. It can get pressure. I watched them play against Lamar, and I said, don't count them out, because they were able to get pressure home against Lamar, who just made the Bengals look silly when they tried to pressure him. Yeah, I think that D line could be legit here in the next couple weeks. We'll see about that moving forward. I'll tell you who is not looking legit right now, and that's the Panthers. They're just not looking legit. And
the other rookie quarterback in this class has been struggling, and Andy Dalton took the reins of that offense this weekend, and they looked much better.
Yeah. I think that's pretty much exactly where I was going with it. Is how could Andy Dalton score 27 points with this team? I mean, it just doesn't seem like you should be able to. They don't have any offensive weapons. I think their offensive line is pretty below average. You know, they're still in the rebuild process, right? And they kept this game pretty close. The Seahawks have managed to pull away towards the end of this ball game, but I think the Seahawks just have a really good offense, man. I mean, they just 37 points now 2 weeks in a row. Geno Smith might be a top 10 quarterback. I don't know, Jacob.
Yeah, I certainly don't think so. But my main thing with Andy Dalton, if he can go out there and keep the Panthers in a game, what are the Bengals doing looking for another backup quarterback? Bring that man home. Let 14 pad those career stats, leading the record books in Cincinnati if Joe Burrow has to miss any time. I would love to see Andy Dalton back in Cincinnati backing up number 9 at the end of his career. The biggest shocker of the weekend, Casey, without a doubt, was the Cardinals 28-16 beating the darling through 3-week Super Bowl favorite Dallas Cowboys. Boy, the Cowboys did not look good. The Cowboys fell behind, and they couldn't ever make it up. They weren't comfortable throwing the ball downfield, even though you have guys like CeeDee Lamb. They didn't feel comfortable using those weapons. They didn't seem like they trusted Dak to air it out. And you saw that come to fruition when they're down there in the red zone near the end of the game, and Dak throws one of the worst picks you can see watching an NFL football game. I mean, this just told me that everything we thought about the Cowboys is probably true. They're going to beat up on bad teams. They're going to struggle with good teams. And when they fall behind, they might be in trouble.
Yeah. I mean, I think you put it perfectly, Jacob. And the way I feel about the Cowboys was reflected in my stink list earlier today. I don't know if we put it up on socials or not, but the Cowboys, they're not going to be able to get to where they want to go if they can't, one, trust their quarterback, and two, have a quarterback that can not turn the ball over in meaningful moments. And I mean, this is a team that they should have, and I'll get into my thoughts about the Cardinals later, but I think, everyone thought that they should beat this team, and they should have. This defense is should have just had a field day, but they didn't. And the offense couldn't get anything going. That's a bit of a worry. I like how you said that you would trade a 6th or a 7th round pick for Andy Dalton there.
I don't know if people thought I meant trading like actual value there, but yeah, maybe even a 5th, but nothing crazy for Andy Dalton. I just think having a quarterback like him in the room might actually be beneficial. We talked about the Dolphins game earlier, but there was another game this weekend that was just not interesting at any point in time. The Kansas City Chiefs 41, the Bears 10. Casey, I think the Bears might be the worst team in the entire league.
Yeah, I mean, when the headline is Taylor Swift is in town, and that was the biggest moment of the game, was seeing her celebrate, which makes me very upset that she's rooting that hard for Travis Kelce. But yeah, I mean, this team is bad, Jacob. It is bad. And I said it was bad last week. I think this week kind of proves my point. I mean, they were just lost. Both sides of the football were just lost. And they couldn't stop nothing. They couldn't get anything going. And on top of that, to add insult to injury, I'm pretty sure Justin Fields is probably going through concussion protocol. I don't know if any of y'all saw that clip of him just getting up all wobbly and whatnot. So how long that puts him out for, I don't know. But this team is not good, Jacob. And of course, the Chiefs, we all know how the Chiefs are. They're pretty darn good.
We're going to figure out just exactly how bad this Bears team is this weekend when they face off against the Denver Broncos in what might be the worst NFL football game of my lifetime. I mean, those two teams just have no business playing on a nationally televised game. Next, we have the Steelers and the Raiders. The Steelers offense showed some flashes. Kenny Pickett threw 2 touchdown passes for the first time in his career, and the Steelers won 23-18. Casey, this seemed like more of a Raiders story to me. That team seems completely dysfunctional.
Yeah, I mean, I was just about to say, I was surprised that the Steelers didn't do more against this team because they just don't seem like it just doesn't seem like it's functioning very well over there and then I was gonna say L.A. and Los. Is it L.A.? No, it's not L.A. Vegas. Why? I don't know why I couldn't think of that. It's not going well for the Vegas Raiders. It is. I mean, just the storylines with Chandler Jones and just how much they collapsed during the Bills game a couple weeks ago. It's not looking great for them in their future.
One key to this game that I wanted to point out, as you can see, the Steelers won 23-18. That's a 5-point win. Well, the Raiders kicked a field goal right at the end of the game. 5 + 3, that's 8. You're down 8 points. What do you usually do down 8 points in a football game, Casey?
I totally forgot about this. Yeah. Why didn't they go for a touchdown?
So down 8 points driving, entering the red zone at the end of the game, Josh McDaniels opts to kick a field goal. And at the end of the game, they asked him, why kick a field goal instead of going for the touchdown and 2-point conversion? He said, down 8, you need 2 scores anyway. Well, Josh, I have good news for you. About 100 years ago, they added this thing called the 2-point conversion, and you can score 8 points on a single drive. Since they started the 2-point conversion, that Raiders game was the first time that a team was down 8 in the last 3 minutes of the game and didn't go for the touchdown and 2-point conversion. They kicked the field goal. That has never happened before in the history of the NFL regular season. Just an unbelievable stat for an unbelievably inept coach. If the Raiders had any money on their hands, they would have had him out of that building a long time ago.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that one, Jacob. That was pretty much malpractice. I don't know what else to say about that. I mean, it was just... We've already tried this with him now twice. He was a head coach for Denver, and then he was a head coach for the Colts for like all of 2 hours or whatever that was. And I think that was enough for me to say probably doesn't deserve another chance. Ended up getting that other chance here with the Raiders. Wonder if they're regretting their decision. My cat is literally about to walk into the camera. Maybe, maybe not.
I saw a little
Maybe,
peek.
yeah. If we see a little cat, I'll whatever. She might peek. She might say hello. Um, then we had the Monday night games. I think that's where we're at, right? Monday night.
Yep.
Yep.
The last two of the weekend, Monday night games. The one most of us cared most about, the Bengals and the Rams, a rematch of 2 Super Bowls ago. Oh, we're going Eagles Bucks first. No, we're going back to the Bengals and the Rams. The Bengals thrashed the Rams 19-16 in a rematch. Super Bowl, was it 56? 56?
I think so.
And yeah, no, it felt good to win this one, Casey. It just felt good to win this one. Joe certainly didn't look like Joe. The offense didn't look like the offense that we want it to be, but it looked better. And better is all you can ask for after an 0-2 start to 2 divisional opponents. We got the win, and that's all that matters.
Yeah, and to be fair, like I've had this, and maybe I'm too optimistic. I've had this take that really the Bengals were put in a spot where they asked Joe Burrow to do too much, and that's why he didn't look great. You know, I think if he doesn't throw the ball, 50-something times that game, I think he looks a lot better. I mean, they were asking him to come back from a lot of penalties. There was at least 3 drives that forced the Bengals to go back 3rd and long. And then there was a couple times where he was sacked, and it was a big sack, not like a 3-yard sack. It was like a 7-8 yard sack. Those are all things that I think at that point, as soon as that happened, they were asking Joe to throw the ball down deep, and he just can't do that right now. He just can't throw off that back foot. It's not working at the moment. And I can't really blame him for that. So I think as we move forward with this Bengals team, hopefully we see some progress being made with that calf. Maybe I'm praying, I'm crossing my fingers that he just magically gets better as time goes on, but they got to protect him first. So yeah, I mean, very happy that the Bengals, they look great on offense. They were creative on offense. They got Jamar Chase involved. They ran the ball a little bit more. I mean, I wish we would have ran it more during the first half of the game, but again, penalties and sacks kind of derailed that part of the process. And yeah, I mean, I'm glad that we got our revenge back on the Rams. I mean, Stafford was sacked how many times? 7? Something like that. And defense, they look like their old selves again, which was good to see.
Yeah, man, that defense looks great. Dax Hill's flying all over the field. He's a great replacement at one of the safety positions. The team looked really good. And it was a really encouraging sign to see for the Bengals. The good thing about that Bengals game being a great game was you didn't have to worry about the other Monday night game. The Eagles beat the Bucks 25-11, and it was exactly what we told you last Wednesday. It was a good team playing a bad team, and the good team was going to win. And the Eagles, even though Jalen Hurts still doesn't look great, the Eagles just coasted to another victory. That roster outside of the quarterback position, those trenches might just be good enough that the Eagles cannot play their best football and still just manhandle teams.
Yeah, I mean, it's Baker Mayfield-led offense, man. That's all it really boils down to. I think they just got away with playing some really bad defenses early on, and maybe that gave some people some false hope, but yeah, this Eagles team is pretty legit. I think their defensive line is, probably a top 3 unit when everyone's healthy. And they pretty much showed it last night. Or not last night, but they pretty much showed that on Monday night.
Yeah, absolutely ridiculous move by the rest of the league to let the Eagles get their hands on Jalen Carter with the rest of that defensive front. We talked about him last week on the show, and he had 2 more pressures on Monday night. I mean, just what an unbelievable start to that kid's young career. Okay, so that wraps up week 3, and what an eventful week it was. But week 4 is right around the corner, and boy, these games are awesome. I love these week 4 games. I think this slate is a great one. And we start with the best game of the weekend by far. I think if we could build a matchup, we would all build something pretty close to this. Miami versus Buffalo. This is going to be a fun one. And we see it on the screen right here, that Miami offense. Boy, oh boy, were they rolling this weekend. 70 points. 70 points. That's unbelievable. We've never seen an offense do anything like that. You have two running backs in Raheem Mostert and Devin Achane that got legitimate carries, over 40 fantasy points for both. Achane over 50. This is all without Jalen Waddle, who's supposed to be coming back this week. It's crazy to think that this Dolphins offense might be getting even better.
Yeah, I mean, it was ridiculous that they did this without Waddle. It was absolutely ridiculous. And not only that, I'm just going to throw this up on screen since we talked about it a little bit. Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane or Achane? Achane. It's Achane.
So Achane pregame, and then at about halftime, I believed he changed it to Achane.
Achane. Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty
crazy. I've never
crazy.
seen a mid-season, mid-game pronunciation change before. It was one of the craziest things I've ever seen.
Yeah, and rightfully so. I mean, if he wants to be called correctly, pronounce his name correctly, he should say that after having a 203-yard rushing day, 3 touchdowns, and every time he touched the ball, he got a first down. That's what was crazy to me was if you look there, I just averaged all their touches, and when you're averaging 10 yards every time you touch the ball, yeah, I think you deserve to talk your stuff. I just think you deserve to be called correctly, the way that you want to be called. So, yeah, this offense, pretty nuts, pretty nuts, Jacob. Are we for sure saying that it is the best in the league? Like when they face the 49ers or they face the Cowboys, that is the best offense in the league?
I'd feel pretty comfortable saying that right now. I think the one offense that I would put up there with them when it's firing on all cylinders is ours in Cincinnati, and we haven't seen the Cincinnati offense look anything like that. I don't think the Philadelphia Eagles are the one team that has the weapons that I think closely compare to Miami with Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, but they do so much in between the tackles and man football that I don't think it applies nearly the same. What Miami's able to do with Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill and the emergence of both of these backs in the backfield and Tua, I think this is the most electric offense in the league for sure. Right, and right now, I think it's by a pretty wide margin.
Yeah, I would have to agree. And part of it starts with Tua. You have him as your MVP favorite. For me, that team does not go without Mike McDaniels. I think he should be considered for MVP, and he's not even a player. So,
well, good thing they have an award for that.
Yeah, most valuable coach of the year, right? Or best coach of the year or something like that. I mean, usually it's whoever wins the most games. Well, he's currently undefeated, so maybe he will get that. He definitely deserves it. He is just innovating in a way that requires a lot from your players. 50% of their plays involve some sort of motion, which is just crazy to me. I mean, they play in Miami. It's hot. And you're asking your guys to run all the time. Well, it's working out great for them so far. Now, how do we feel about their defense? Will their defense be able to sustain? Will it be able to be just good enough to get them where they need to go?
That's my question. And that's what I thought Vic Fangio was going to be able to do. I thought the addition of him as their defensive coordinator was going to be exactly what that team needed to flip the switch on the other end of the ball. He used Bradley Chubb so well in Denver, and now he comes down to Miami. And Bradley Chubb still just looks like an average guy out there. Ever since he got to Miami, he has not been the same Bradley Chubb that we watched in Denver, the dominant force on the edge. I know they planned on having Jalen Ramsey at the corner position. Well, he's not back yet. So I don't know what to think of that defense. The quick thing to point out is, wow, you won by 50 points. What a great game. Well, you allowed 20 points to the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos with Russell Wilson at quarterback, you can count on one hand the amount of times they've scored 20 points. So I don't know what to take from that defense. We're going to learn a lot this week against a Buffalo offense that's really found their own since week 1. I'm worried about this group.
Yeah, and I just looked it up really quickly. Jalen Ramsey is targeting a return late November, early December, which puts him around, you're playing the Jets, Commanders, Titans, Jets, Cowboys, Ravens, Bills. So yeah, he'll get a few games where it really matters, but like the Jets are pretty much out. If he's coming back against Commanders, like maybe they can put something together that won't be so bad. I mean, like I lost a lot of faith last week or this week with the Commanders and that offensive line just being able to protect Sam Howell. I think Sam Howell's good enough, but just with that offensive line, I don't know. Titans, I keep saying it time and time again. I think they're pretty irrelevant. And then they play the Jets again. So I don't know. Maybe Jalen Hurts coming back will put them over the edge. I just don't see that happening though. The first 2 weeks, they gave up 34 points and 17 points. Gave up 17 points to a Patriots offense who struggled quite a bit. Broncos 20. It's hard to say. I think this week is going to tell us a lot because they're going to be playing the Buffalo Bills. They're pretty much their older brother, right? I mean, they have been the team to beat in the AFC East for the last couple years.
Yeah, and that Bills offense seems to have found its own after a struggling week one against the Jets. Look, that offense runs through Stephon Diggs. I don't think that's a secret to anybody. He had 12 targets, hauled in 8 of them for Buffalo on Saturday or on Sunday. But the Buffalo receivers as a whole only had 20 receptions. That's nearly half of the total receptions for the team to Stephon Diggs. If you can find a way to take him away, I think this Bills offense really takes a step back, but no team can seem to do that. Gabe Davis with a classic boomer bust, 1 catch, 1 touchdown game. He needs to step up and be a more viable wide receiver too if I'm going to have faith in the Bills being a legitimate Super Bowl contender.
I have to agree with that. He is very, very odd. It's like you said, boom or bust, and it's like a really big boom. It's like a catch 70 yards and a touchdown, or 2 catches for 80 yards and a touchdown. He never has a game where he's catching 8 or more passes, and maybe that's somewhat by design because, I mean, they targeted Diggs 12 times this game, and I think they're getting that running back position a little bit more involved. But yeah, they really need to involve him more in this passing attack. They really need to either get the tight end group maybe to step up a little bit, because I don't really feel like Kincaid is given the sort of pop that they were looking for with that number 2 role. Someone on that offense has got to step up. I imagine they'll eventually get it with Davis, but as of right now, it's just not happening. But
one guy we are seeing step up is James Cook. James Cook's been getting way more touches for the Bills, and he's looked really good. He's getting up over 4 yards per carry, and I think he really is cementing himself as the running back 1 in that backfield.
yeah, I mean, let me just throw this up real quick since I made it, and I've got it. This is his season stats so far. 44 carries for 267 yards, 10 receptions and 67 yards. He's definitely getting involved. He's definitely being asked to do a lot more than he was last season. He is averaging currently 6 yards a touch. A little over 6.5 yards a touch, I think. So that's pretty darn good if you ask me. This is exactly what Buffalo needed. They needed a really strong run game to be a little bit more balanced, to be able to put some of the pressure off of Josh Allen, to be the only person capable of running the football. James Cook, excellent pickup for them. Awesome that he's finally trying to be that number 1 back. And as we can see here, towards the end of this ball game against the Commanders, the defense started popping off. And the defense for this Buffalo team, it was underrated too a little bit because of that week 1 battle against the Jets. But man, they get pressure home, and they get pressure home with a bunch of guys. Like, they don't have a guy; they're getting a guy back in Von Miller. I think that might be this week. It might be a little bit longer, but again, they don't necessarily need him. That secondary is also pretty elite too. They got Tre'Davious White. They have drawn a blank, but they've got a pretty solid secondary, and this Bills team It's pretty legit. It's always been pretty legit, but we just always undermine them because of how they've performed in big moments in the playoffs, and um, they're a threat. They're a threat.
Yeah, I think this Bills defense is really legit, and you touched on the pieces they have in their secondary. The veterans at safety, Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde, that's just really what anchors that whole defense. They've been there for so long. They've been there long before the Bills were this juggernaut in the AFC that people were worried about. They were there when the Bills were fighting to end a playoff drought. They turned this team. They were part of the group that turned this team and turned this culture around. And look, I think this Bills defense is one of the best units that we've seen in the league right now. And they're not healthy yet. When they get Von Miller back and that pass rush can take a leap, they're already second in the league in sacks. I really, really think that this Bills defense has taken a massive jump and can drag the offense when Josh Allen has one of those hiccup games. You know, one of those 2-3 turnover games is coming for Josh Allen. Mistakes are part of that number 17 experience that they have up there in Buffalo because that's how those great plays happen. Well, they haven't had the defense to pick him up when the offense isn't lights out. Well, now I think they might, and the Bills really scare me.
Yeah, and I believe when Von Miller was healthy last season that they were the number one defense in terms of yards, pressure, sacks. So if he's back to being Von Miller, which he's getting up there in age, I mean, this team could be really scary. Really scary. This will be a big test for both Miami and Buffalo to see which team is going to come out on top. What are your thoughts? Who are you picking this game? Miami is favored by 2.5.
Yeah, look, I'm taking Buffalo. I'm taking Buffalo every day of the week. I think Miami, there's no reason that Miami should be favored in this game. I'm taking Buffalo.
I'm just double checking to make sure yes, I messed up. It is not Miami.
I was going to say, I don't think
Buffalo,
they are.
Buffalo is favored, not Miami. My mistake.
Okay.
I'll
Buffalo
fix that.
minus 2.5. Yeah, the line's been bumping around quite a bit from 2.5 to 3. And I think that's a big, big change. If you're giving me a whole field goal with a team that just scored 70 points, I'd be a little bit enticed to take the Dolphins. But 2.5 at home, give me the Bills. I think that number's a lot higher if the Dolphins scored less than 70 points last week. I think it's an overreaction. I'm taking the Bills.
Yeah, I struggled with this one. I struggled with this one because they play each other very tightly. The wild card round was by 3 points. The week 3 game last season, 21-19, that's another 2 3-point game. And then 32-29, that's another 3-point game. It's going to be close. This game is going to be a close one. Really, for me, I'm going to pick Miami because they're not favored. I'm going to get those points. I think it comes down to a field goal. If I were a bettor, and if I were you in the chat, I'd look for that plus 3, minus 3. Look for it. You're going to get better value that way. Both teams are really, really good. It's going to come down in the very end. We're split on it. I think that's the
Couldn't
appropriate.
disagree more there. Search and claw for that minus 2.5. That minus 2.5 is the best, one of the best lines. If you can get it below 3, do not bet the 3. Even for Miami, don't bet the 3. Go find the 2.5. If you think they're going to win by 3 points, you go find somewhere you can have 2.5. And you're not going to push a 3. Pushing a bet's worse than losing a bet.
Unless you get your bet back.
I stand by the fact that pushing a bet's losing a bet. It's just like tying a football game. When you tie a football game, all you do is you sit at your locker after the game ends and you say, "Damn, there's one play right there. There's one play. I could have done it different. I could have won the game." But when you lose, you just lose, and you get better. Right?
Hey.
Yeah, you can't push. Ugh, pushes make me sick.
Hey, fair enough. I guess I'm a little biased just because of what my recent betting has been like. A push has actually saved me quite a bit of money. So we'll move on. Browns versus Ravens, a AFC North division rivalry game. Browns favored by 3. Browns have looked decent last couple weeks. What are your thoughts on this game, Jacob? Because I still don't trust this Browns team as far as I could throw them.
I think I'm starting to like the Browns a little bit. And I don't mean that in the sense of a fan. I think I like the Browns as a football team. I think this defense is very, very good. I think Deshaun Watson is coming into his own. I think they have very legitimate weapons on the outside with Amari Cooper, DPJ, and Elijah Moore. I think this backfield of Jerome Ford, even though Jerome Ford really struggled in his first game as the marquee back, I think this backfield of Jerome Ford and Kareem Hunt can do enough to make this offense all right. I think I really like the Browns. Deshaun Watson played his best game in 3 years, 289 yards and 2 touchdowns on Sunday. And this team looked like the Browns team that we've been told to expect since he got there.
I was hoping you didn't say that. I just part of me in the shtick is that the Browns stink, right? That's part of my identity. It's been like that for about a year now. Deshaun had a great game, but when you have a guy who does this, when you got a guy who does this as your quarterback, I gotta question your team, but I just do. I mean that is such a terrible play, Jacob. How could you have any faith in that? How can you have any faith in that when the Titans are one of the worst passing defenses in all of football last year? They're on pace to be just as bad as they were last year. I don't like it. And maybe Deshaun had a great game. Maybe he had a great game. 27-33 is nothing to scoff at. 289 yards. But they were going all out to stop the run. I mean, they didn't have much success running the football, so of course they're going to start throwing it. And I don't know. I won't say I'm believing in the Browns yet until I start seeing them win more meaningful games. And you know, you got to beat your rivals, right? You got to beat the Ravens this week. But the Ravens too, they're all banged up. I don't know how I could possibly give the Browns credit if they get a win. I mean, it just depends on how they win the ball game. But
I mean, Casey, come on. At some point, you can't just look at everyone the Browns play and just say there's something wrong with them. At some point, the Browns play the teams in front of them and beat them, and the Browns look like a good team. They did it to the Bengals. They did it last week, and they're going to do it to the Ravens this week. And you're going to come back here on Wednesday, and you're going to say, oh, there were injuries. The Ravens were packing the box. How did Deshaun ever throw to him? Maybe the Browns are just good. Maybe they're just a good team.
They lost to the Steelers, man. I don't know what to say.
I think the Steelers are a good team, too.
Oh, no.
That's the issue here.
I don't know,
Steelers
man.
are one of the best defenses in the entire league.
Okay,
all right. The Steelers are no joke.
Can the AFC North see more than three playoff teams? Can we see all four make it to the... No?
No, absolutely not.
Then one of those teams stinks. And it's going to be the Browns.
Every team that misses the playoffs stinks?
Yes.
Well, then there's the disagreement.
Well,
I think there's going to be teams in the AFC that miss the playoffs with double-digit wins, 10, 11, 12 wins, going to be looking at wild card spots and missing the playoffs this year in the AFC.
Well, as you are a Bengals fan, Ravens, Browns, who do you want to win this ball game? What is more important to you? Is it that the Browns lose because the Bengals can't win against the Browns? Or is it that you want the Ravens to lose because they always manage to stick around towards the end of the season?
I don't know that it's week 4. I'm not doing that yet for the Bengals and picking and choosing wins and losses. Yeah, I just think the Browns are going to win the football game. I mean, I don't think the Ravens. I think the Ravens beat up the way the Ravens have been beat up. I just don't think there's any way that they can compete. I think the Browns, the rushing attack. Look, you saw Jerome Ford get 10 carries, 1.8 yards per carry. That's not good enough. The Jerome Ford experiment is going to end, and it's going to end soon. And my money's on it ending this week at Kareem Hunt taking over as the feature back in that backfield. And that offense is going to take a big leap. I still have a lot of faith in Kareem Hunt and what he can do in the league. The last time we saw him as a featured back in this league, he led the league in rushing. So I know that was a long time ago, but I still have a lot of faith in Kareem Hunt as a lead back in this league, and I think that offense is going to take a massive jump. And look, we saw Amari Cooper play one of his best games of his Browns career last week. He had 7 catches for 116 yards and a touchdown, and he should have had 45 more and another touchdown. But the ref, look at this. He's standing right there. The ref is standing right there. And Amari Cooper, clear as day, running down the sidelines for a touchdown. But they called him out at the 40. They called him out at the 40. I don't know how you missed that call, but he still managed to put up over 100 yards and another touchdown on the day. Look, if that offense gets going and that defense can keep doing what it's doing, the Browns might make a case to be a real contender. And when we're talking Super Bowl.
Okay, all shticks aside, I think this Browns team is pretty good. But how big is the loss to Nick Chubb then? Do you think if they had Nick Chubb that this is like a legit contender? Because I think what makes this team really good is that they kind of have a new defense. It's not just able to get to the quarterback. I don't know if you already said the stat or not, but is it negative 36 yards before contact?
Negative 36 yards allowed rushing before contact this year. The NFL average is in the 70s. So, yeah, I mean, it's record breaking. They're setting records in run and pass. I know the pass yards are a little bit inflated from Joe Burrow's 81 yards in week 1, and that'll never happen again against any of the 32 quarterbacks in the league. But that did happen, and it's the reality of the situation. Those are the numbers that they played. So their numbers across the board on defense are unbelievable. The pass rush with Darius Smith and what Jim Schwartz has been able to cook up in his first year as the defensive coordinator. Yeah, I mean, I think the way that he's able to use the pieces they have in that defense has really opened them up. And the secondary that struggled in years past are being the guys that we saw in college, because these are big names. Martin Emerson, Denzel Ward, these are big names. Greedy Williams that we loved in college that weren't panning out the way we expected in the NFL. Well, this year they look pretty good.
Yeah, and I do have one clip to show that kind of just showcases how good this defense is, that they can cause pre-snap penalties. I don't know if you and anyone else in the chat saw Myles Garrett just going back and forth. And it caused a delay of game because they're trying to line up on his side and double him. I mean, that's incredible. And that's just I don't think I've ever seen that before.
I wonder how many guys in the league, number one, are having 2 tight ends follow you side to side to double team you. And number 2, how many of those guys are smart enough to recognize it, run laps behind your D line, and get a delay of game call? I mean, what an unbelievable play by Myles Garrett. That just proves the brains up here are just as good as the body he's playing in, and he's a real special player.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. And just a little tidbit too, they played the Titans, they beat the Titans 3-27. They held Derrick Henry to 20 yards. They just absolutely dismantled Ryan Tannehill, and I don't have much to say about Ryan Tannehill. I don't think he's that good of a quarterback, but like this defense is legit. This defense is, I will go ahead and say that it is definitely Super Bowl worthy just from the start for this 4 weeks. I want to see them, how they can contain Lamar. If they contain Lamar, dude, it's going to be scary times. It's going to be scary times as a Bengals fan. Just watch out. What are your
You also
thoughts?
have to see Deshaun Watson put that on the field more.
Right.
He's only done that once in about 3 years. He needs to go out and throw, 27 to 33 for almost 300 yards and multiple touchdowns for the next 5-6 weeks, and then we can legitimately talk about the Browns as a contender. But with that version of Deshaun Watson and this version we're seeing of their defense, I think they're a really scary team.
And because we got to talk about the other team, the Ravens, they've got a lot of injuries. The first 3 weeks, they on offense, it's hard to tell because of all the injuries, but it does look pretty much like they're running the same offense that they've ran with Greg Roman a little bit. It's not exactly the same, but it's not really allowing Lamar to push deep, I should say. It's not like they're opening up the playbook to let him throw intermediate routes, deep routes very often. It's a lot of dinking and dunking, running the ball. It's just basically the same as Greg Roman. When will they give Lamar the keys to the Ferrari and just let him rip it? Because
Is it as simple as Odell Beckham Jr.? This offense was built over the summer with Todd Monken, who's new, Zay Flowers, who's new, Odell Beckham, who's new, a lot of these guys who are new, and a whole new system. Were you just banking on having certain guys, certain personnel? Is it as simple as that? They don't feel comfortable really opening this thing up without the guys they've been practicing with? I think it might be, because in week 1 against the Texans, we saw that downfield focus. Lamar didn't run the ball nearly as much as he did, this last week. And even against the Bengals, he was finding a lot of rushing lanes. And then they went away from that as OBJ got dinged up and they started to lose people on the offensive line. I think they're worried about, number one, their defense. So they're trying to keep their offense on the field as much as possible. And number two, their offensive line maintaining for downfield shots. You're missing 3 starting offensive linemen. We've known how that feels to try to set up downfield shots, missing 3 offensive linemen. It's very, very hard to do. I think the Ravens might just be dribbling the clock out because we've seen them run that same stagnant offense of years past, and it's because they have the same stagnant weapons as years past.
that's fair enough. That's a good point. I didn't really think about it like that. I thought it was more about them trying to set up the deep throws, which I don't think Lamar really needs help with. That is how I would put it. I don't think he needs help throwing the ball intermediate to 15 to 25 yards down the field. I think he's good enough of a quarterback to do that on his own. But just from my memory alone, against the Bengals, they dinked, dunked, ran the ball, and then they set up the deep play to Zay Flowers. That was really their one deep shot of the entire game, it felt like. And it's been the same. It's been the same, pretty much that same scenario these first 3 weeks. It's got to change if they want to have a good offense. Maybe it is just OBJ, but OBJ played in the Bengals game, so I don't know.
Very true. I do think it's important when we talk about the weapons and how lackluster they've been so far to point out how great Zay Flowers has been with the ball in his hand. I've seen Ravens fans doing the same thing the Bengals fans were doing for the first couple weeks, posting screenshots of route trees and being upset about the Ravens offensive coordinator and their usage of Zay Flowers. But when Zay Flowers has had the ball in his hands so far this year, he's made stuff happen. He's been an electric player, making people miss and gaining yards after contact. I think they really found themselves a good one out of Boston College.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. I think he is the long-term solution. I think Zay Flowers, the more he gets involved, the better that offense will be, especially in the passing game. And then, of course, Mark Andrews too. But as he goes, that passing attack should go. We'll see if maybe it makes a breakthrough here soon. I imagine it will. I mean, Lamar was 22 of 31, 202 yards. It's just too many dinking and dunking. I don't know, man. We'll see. We'll see what that offense can do here against the Browns, who are going to be all over Lamar. I mean, Lamar might be one of the most sacked quarterbacks. Well, I say that. I don't know. Maybe he's not. I'd have to look that up. But he's been sacked now, I think, 5 times week 1, 4 times this week. And he would have been sacked 2 or 3 times against the Bengals if there wasn't penalties and things of that nature that were just wiped
9
away.
total sacks against Lamar Jackson in the first 3 weeks. 9 sacks. And 3 of those have resulted in fumbles. And if you watch the Bengals game, there was a strip sack in that game that was brought back from a phantom pass interference call that would have made it 4 fumbles in 3 games. Is it time to start asking questions about whether Lamar Jackson has a ball security problem? Because the carelessness in the pocket and the carelessness with some of his throws, I know he only has 1 interception, but if you've watched the games, you've seen some of those throws sail and find where defenders are and offensive players are not. Is it time to worry about Lamar Jackson's ball security?
It might be. It might be. When you put the ball in harm's way every game, that's a problem. That's a problem. It doesn't matter if you're throwing interceptions, if you're fumbling it all the time. That's going to end up catching up with you, and teams are going to bank on that one opportunity to take that ball away from you, and that could be the difference of a ball game. I mean, it was the difference in the Bengals game. Joe Burrow throws an interception. If he doesn't throw that interception there, they win that ball game. Simple as that.
And with the injuries to their backfield, Lamar's going to have the ball in his hands a whole lot. We know J.K. Dobbins tore his Achilles in week 1. Justice Hill's been banged up. And then last week, Gus Edwards goes down. If all 3 of those guys can't play, it's Kenyon Drake in the backfield. You have to assume they go pick up somebody else. Melvin Gordon did not look great with the ball in his hands this last weekend. A backfield of Kenyon Drake and Melvin Gordon and whatever free agent they can scrounge up in the next coming days certainly doesn't get me excited. And if the Ravens can't run the ball, that offense is going to take a big step back.
I'd have to agree. I know you already said that you think the Browns are going to win this game, but do you think they're going to cover, Jacob?
I do. I hate that it's 3. If you can buy it down, get the half point. Hate even numbers. But yeah, I think it's the Browns. It's the injuries, it's the lack of run game, and it's the Browns defense. Nothing else is going into my play here. It's just Cleveland.
Well, I think that this game is going to be close because I feel like the Ravens never get blown out. They always keep it close. I'd be surprised. I say they never get blown out. The last time they got blown out was by us, 2021. I'm going to go with the Ravens here. I don't think the Browns are going to have an explosive enough offense to put it out of reach. So I think it could be a field goal type game. So
if a banged up Ravens team is able to go into Cleveland and beat the Browns when the Browns are riding as high as they've been riding in quite some time, I'm all the way out on Cleveland. This is an absolute must-win game for the Browns. I think if you're going to flip the script on what that organization has been for the last 20, 30 plus years, it starts this week. You gotta keep this thing rolling because you're not going to be able to have a whole lot of time where the Bengals start 0-2 and the Ravens drop a game and the Chiefs drop a game and the Bills drop a game. The Browns are within striking distance to really take a hold of the AFC North and start to make some noise in the AFC, and it starts this weekend.
Just really quickly, Excalibur Iron Force says you might be the only person in Alabama with a Ohio State helmet.
I probably am. I got to show my values somehow. Show my favorite team somehow.
Let's move on. To the next game, Kansas City in New York. We won't be on this game for too long because I think we've both kind of written off the Jets to this point. But will we see Taylor Swift? I don't know. Maybe.
New York seems like an easy yes.
It does.
It seems like an easy yes. You need the debut in Arrowhead with the mom. I get that. But New York is a natural progression to where Taylor Swift should be going to football games. So, yeah, no, she'll definitely be there.
Yeah, and Travis Kelce, he needs to ball out, right? I mean, if she's there, he's going to try to ball out. And, he balled out. Well, I say he balled out. He played good enough to impress her, I think, and against the Bears. I mean,
it's hard to really ball out when your starters are getting benched about halfway through the third quarter because you're just dog walking a team so bad. I mean, the Bears are just a joke of an organization, and the Chiefs had an opportunity to get right after a slow start. Even beating Jacksonville, it just didn't look right. They had a chance to get right this week against the Bears, and boy, did they. 41 points, and that offense just ran. Do you think the Chiefs just roll from here on out? I don't see that offense slowing down.
I don't know, man. The Bears are just bad. They're really bad. I want to see them do it one more time. The Jets have a pretty good defense. I mean, you look at their schedule, man. They play next 3 weeks. It's Jets, Vikings, and Broncos. I think they put up 30 points in each of those games. Maybe not the Jets. Maybe they put up 20, 24 points in that game, but I think they're back. I'll just put it like that. I think they're back. Travis Kelce pretty much is the cog that makes the engine work. I would say Patrick Mahomes is the full-on engine, and Kelce is just one piece that actually makes it all click. And I think that I think that the Chiefs will be in a really good spot moving forward as long as he's healthy. Now,
Yeah, I agree. And I don't think we learned anything about the other side of the ball. I think the Bears offense is just so bad that a 3-quarter shutout is just nothing. I'm not even counting it. I'm not giving them any credit for it. I think I might be able to shut out the Bears for 3 quarters. So I don't know. I guess we'll see this week, but will we? Because the Jets offense just looks so bad. I think that Chiefs defense is going to get some more time to just dribble out the clock before we figure out what they really are.
yeah, and I hate to say this. You play who's on your schedule, right? But leading up to the next couple weeks, they will have played the Jaguars, who had 3 offensive linemen missing. They beat that team 17-9. The Bears, just terrible franchise, 41-10. The Jets don't have an offense. They're playing 3 teams that have really struggled on offense or are just abysmal on offense altogether. Will they be overrated? Will this defense be overrated in the next couple weeks? I think they will be.
It definitely could be. If people take a 3-quarter shutout against the Bears to mean anything, then they're already getting overrated, because I expect very similar stuff to happen against those teams that you just laid out coming up on their schedule. Just no exciting offenses coming up for the Chiefs. And if they can get those numbers down, you see how people are falling in love with the numbers of the Browns defense. I know those aren't very similar. The Browns have great guys on that defense, but they have been playing some pretty beaten up and roughed up teams. I think the Chiefs might have the same thing coming here. Get those numbers down to tops in the league or right around that conversation, and then teams start falling in love with their defense and then get woken up in that latter half of the year.
Yeah, and, I won't spend much time on the Jets. I think we have 2 things that we really want to discuss about the Jets. One being just Zach Wilson being the quarterback still. You sent me 2 clips. Should I have volume up on them or no?
No, there's no volume. It's a sideline shot of Michael Carter, running back for the Jets, and Garrett Wilson, obviously the star receiver. Here you see Garrett Wilson getting in Zach Wilson's face on the sideline, presumably asking him to throw him the ball. Garrett Wilson has not been getting the volume of targets that we were expecting. This man was being taken as a top 5 fantasy receiver, and the offense is just not running through him. And then here we see Michael Carter. That's his position coach. That's his running backs coach. And he has to be pried out of his face from screaming at him, presumably, to get more touches. What Zach Wilson has done to that offense and what Zach Wilson has done to that locker room that looked so fun and so closely knit during Hard Knocks, Zach Wilson has driven a wedge through all of them. And it looks like just an absolutely horrible place to play where nobody's having fun. I'm really worried about the Jets. I don't know that it can get worse, but I think it's going to.
Is Hard Knocks done? Is it wrapped up?
Yeah.
When did it wrap up? Was it like...
It wraps up before the season.
Okay. I was curious about that. I didn't know if they... Because don't they do something mid-season for one team?
Starting last year, they're doing an in-season series of Hard Knocks for a different team as well. Yeah, it's a separate thing.
Could you imagine right now, like just the
Go
difference
back
between
to New York?
Yeah, the first 4 or 5 episodes, and then Aaron Rodgers' injury, the high of that win, and then getting blown out by the Cowboys, the disaster that happened against the Patriots, a team that they've struggled to beat for a very long time. It's the Patriots' 15th win in a row against them. They just have something over top of their heads that they just can't get over this hump. And Zach Wilson is the catalyst of this. It's really, really sad that that's the case for the Jets. I mean, Aaron Rodgers would not let this happen for sure. Now,
I touched on it in our weekend rewind there, and the fact that Robert Saleh can stand up there and still say that he thinks Zach Wilson gives them the best chance to win makes me question how much longer Robert Saleh can coach in the NFL. Because he is starting to lose the rest of that locker room. And this seems to be a reoccurring theme with the Jets, and an issue that they have from coach to coach, from era to era. Something goes wrong. Because, Casey, I don't know if you remember, your favorite quarterback in the league was on the Jets at one point. And there was something that happened in the locker room there. He wasn't playing his best, and one of his teammates gave him a good old knuckle sandwich right hook right to the jaw and fractured it. The Jets organization has such a long history of just ugly, ugly stories internally. They seem like more often than not, people are button heads, even when they're successful. Mark Sanchez makes it to back-to-back AFC championships, and you still see him and Rex Ryan getting these screaming matches on the sideline. The Jets are a dysfunctional organization, and it's just really coming to a head now that Zach Wilson's at the helm, which is funny because for Jets fans, they thought that they finally had turned the page. They thought they finally had something new. They thought the Jets were finally going to be a competitive organization, and that lasted 4 plays. So I genuinely feel bad for my Jets fans, but boy, this is going to be a hard team to watch the rest of the year.
Yeah, and any jabs for Geno Smith are surely welcomed on this program. I do want to give one update for those that are watching our show and not watching the Reds. The Reds did unfortunately lose today, 3-4. They had a little bit of a rally there towards the end in the bottom of the 8th. Couldn't get it done. I don't think they're
Gonna need some help, Casey.
Don't think they're mathematically eliminated yet, but they're going to need some help. That's right. They're going to need some help. We need Atlanta to win some games. We need the Mets to win some games. We'll see where that goes. Let's move on to our the other thing that we want to discuss with the Jets that happened over the weekend. Jacob, we need to do a box court.
Yes, we do.
In the world of sports, certain athletes or topics are considered especially divisive. At Chatterbox Sports, the dedicated fans who debate these topics are Trace and Reed. Welcome to Box Court.
Well, it's not exactly Trace and Reed. It's Mac and JT, Casey and Jacob. We gotta put our guy Mac Jones. We gotta put him on court right now. We gotta put him on the stage because he's being accused of a couple of nut touches, ball tags, going for the gonads.
Heinous acts.
Heinous
acts. Just no place for that on the football field. Sauce Gardner posted this clip to avoid a fine himself because, as you'll see at the end, he gave Mac a good shove. But you'd give someone a good shove, too, if they're crawling out of the pile and give you a hit to the family jewels. I don't know. Mac has a history of being a dirty player with ankle twists and late hits in the NFL. I tend to believe Sauce here. Casey, how do you feel?
Yeah, this angle doesn't show a whole lot for me. I mean, I keep watching it. I mean, it looks like his hand might be really close to Sauce. I don't know how, I don't want to get into the details of, how hard he actually hit him. It could just, him been swinging his arm. I'm going to play the second angle because this is more of a close-up, and you can kind of maybe see that his arm was, that it hit something. It kind of hits his. You can just barely see it, barely see him kind of smack it. Just look at the bottom left of your screen, and just you can see the flick of that wrist there. I gotta believe Sauce Gardner. I gotta believe Sauce Gardner on this one. Mac Jones has got a lot of different cases around his time in the league where he's put a foot up in someone's groin, he's twisted people's ankles, he dives for people's ankles on different returns and things of that nature. Yeah, I think he deserves the fine, Jacob. I think he deserves to get maybe even suspended. I don't know. I mean, it's just why even do that? If you're gonna mess with someone, just smack their helmet. That can be a penalty. But why go for the jewels, man? That's so uncalled for.
Yeah, just unbelievable. And for a guy that I loved so much at Alabama in 2020, for him to go to the league and just turn into this absolute scumbag. Not what I wanted to see. It's unfortunate. I saw a late hit last year against the Bengals, the famous ankle twists, and now a nut tap against another Cincinnati legend, Sauce Gardner. I don't know how I'm supposed to have any other opinion other than anti-Mac Jones. So I'll plant my flag firmly in the guilty camp. I think he needs to go behind bars, the proverbial bars of boxed court, of course.
Of course. I'm assuming you're taking the Chiefs minus 9.5.
9.5 is so many points in an NFL game, and I don't care. You double it, triple it. The Jets are dysfunctional. I'll take the Chiefs.
I think that might be one of my favorite bits from you. You always start with 9 points or 10 points is a lot in the NFL, but I'm going to take it anyways. That might be one of my favorites from you, Jacob. Let's move on to Seattle at New York, the Giants, New York Football Giants. There's no longer a baseball team there and hasn't been for many, many years, but they still like to be called the New York Football Giants. I see here in your notes you have Geno Smith as a leader.
I have pro Geno Smith thoughts to start this game, Casey, because if you know anything about me, you know how big of an Ohio State fan I am, and that comes back to how much I love Jackson Smith and Jigba. Jackson Smith and Jigba was absolutely a generational talent as a sophomore, putting up over 400 yards in the Rose Bowl, and then his final season at Ohio State got taken from us. Well, he was drafted in the first round by the Seahawks, and everyone kind of expected him to have a great rookie year and be in the Rookie of the Year conversation. Well, through 3 weeks, he has struggled, not getting many targets, certainly not having many catches. And he was pouting on the sideline at the end of the half. And who's the first guy to come over and talk to him? It's Geno Smith, the leader of the team. So, Casey, if we could play that with audio, that'd be great.
Okay.
I know that's your guy, but Geno earned some points from me.
Let's see here. And
I need you. I need you in the second half. I need you locked in. Hey, look, whatever happened, it's on me. It ain't never on you. And you got to get the ball, so I got to find you, all right? But I need you to give me your best this second half, all right? Come on. Come on. Come on, Lock. Come on. Oh, hey, let's go. Let's go. You the best. You the best. Let's go. Come on.
you the best.
Yeah, that's absolutely what you want to see out of your quarterback, a guy that they believed in the offseason and re-signed and keep him there. That's an encouraging sign. I love to see that from Geno Smith. Because if he can get there's the offense going, that offensive weapons rolling like we've seen him be able to really open up DK and Tyler Lockett lately, if he can get JSN in the fold there, Casey might be right. Maybe he could sneak his way into that top 10 discussion because those are 3 legitimate weapons. And what Kenneth Walker's been able to do in that backfield has been special. He's been a great player through the first couple weeks. If those offense can get going, the Seahawks are a pretty scary team. And 37 points in 2 of their first 3 games tell me that they're really close.
Yeah, so let me just temper the expectations for the Seahawks just a little bit because I think this team is good, but they've had some issues with the offensive line, injuries. They're getting ready to play a team that makes me worried in the Giants with Leonard Williams and Dexter Lawrence. I think those 2 together are going to really make it difficult. Now, Giants don't have much of an offense to speak of, so maybe the advantage goes to Seattle. But then they go play the Bengals. The Bengals defense looks like it's back. They play the Browns. That defense can get after the quarterback. Ravens, they can get after the quarterback. 49ers, Cowboys, the 49ers again, the Eagles, they just have a really, really tough schedule from here on out. I think specifically with this Seattle team, they really, really need those guys, Lockett, Metcalf, and Jackson Smith and Jigba, to really pop off, help out Geno Smith because he's going to be running around for his life all day. And this is going to really show me this week if I actually have all the faith in the world in Geno Smith. All this offseason, you and I have been going back and forth on whether or not he's a top 10 quarterback or not. I think he is. This game will help me really cement that in my mind because he's got to be able to avoid pressure like he did last year. And he was still sacked the most, one of the most in the league last year, and was still putting up great numbers. I got to continue to see that. The Lions game was a really good start. The Panthers, to me, was a bit of a... I know he played good, but I thought it would have been a lot better. They relied a lot on Walker. He almost had 100 yards. And I know Geno Smith had 300 yards, but it's the Panthers, right? I expect a little bit of this, right? I expected this from him. I want to see him have another stellar day against the Giants for me to finally be able to say that he is truly deserving of that top 10 spot. Now, I mentioned Walker. I think that's what makes this offense super dynamic. I think that's what makes this team really function, is that as long as he's healthy, they're good. And I don't even know if it matters anymore if he's healthy or not because of Charbonnet.
Look, see, I love Kenneth Walker. I think Kenneth Walker's a great back, and he had a great rookie year with well over 1,000 yards. And this year, he's been playing very well. Two of the 3 games, he had over 5 yards per carry. And last week, he had 18 carries for 97 yards, getting into the end zone twice, and adding an element to his game that we didn't see last year with 3 catches for 60 yards. To me, Kenneth Walker has done more than enough to cement himself as the clear RB1 in that backfield, but that just is not the case. Week 1, Walker played 65% of the snaps to Charbonnet's 24. Week 2, 61 to 28. And then week 3, all the way down to a 49% snap share for Kenneth Walker, 44% for Zach Charbonnet. It seems like Seattle's very high on the rookie running back out of UCLA, and I think that he might really get involved in this offense soon. Even though Kenneth Walker's looked so good, they seem to really want to get him the ball.
Yeah, I mean, I think they don't want to wear anyone out. I don't think they want to see Walker get hurt. I think that might be part of the reason why they're trying to maybe get to more of that 50-50 split. Only time will tell. And, Charbonnet was also hurt during the preseason. I don't think he was healthy week 1. So maybe it was always their intention to go more 50-50. But both, I think, are very deserving of that role.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And 50-50 is a great move for an NFL team. It stinks for all of us out here that play fantasy football. I mean, what are you supposed to do with a running back that's getting 50% of the touches? It's just, you can't even play the guy.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that right now. I have no running backs in any of my leagues. I made a very big mistake. Just I've tried to be really trendy and go the
zero RB.
Zero RB. It's just a bad move. Don't ever do that. It's never worked out for me. I'm not gonna sit here and say I'm a professional at fantasy football, but it's never worked out for me. I'm a big
zero RB guy. So you're talking to a guy on the other side of the aisle here. I started all my drafts this year with 2 receivers, and I'm doing very well.
I'm already trying to possibly trade Justin Jefferson or Jalen Waddle for an RB1. I just can't. I can't do it. Like Damian Pierce and Madison are just not doing it for me, and especially Madison.
Encouraging signs this last week, though.
Yeah, but how long is that going to last, Jacob? How long
Very
is that
true.
going to last? And the Vikings.
Let's get back on task here.
Sorry.
And focus on the Seattle defense. Because we know what that offense can be and the ceiling for that offense. But the Seattle defense was a big issue last year and part of the reason why they were in so many close games. And they look like they've improved quite a bit. That rushing defense has been shockingly good. But they haven't really played great rushing offenses. The Rams in week 1, before they moved to Kyren Williams, when it was Cam Akers in a complete load of that backfield, we know what he is. Obviously not good enough that they've already moved on from him. The Lions, who split carries between Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, we know what our opinions are on that backfield. And then the Panthers, who Miles Sanders is absolutely nothing special. So the Seattle improved run defense might be a whole lot of smoke. In my opinion, I don't know. But one thing I do know is that Devin Witherspoon, the rookie corner, has been absolutely unbelievable. Tariq Woolen on one side, Devin Witherspoon on the other. That's a corner duo that's going to wreak havoc on receivers in the league for quite some time. And drafting him and adding him into that rotation has given them the ability to move Kobe Bryant from Cincinnati, the rookie last year, to the safety position. The versatility in that secondary right now is unbelievable. The young talent, the speed, the length. Yeah, this defense could figure it out.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. I think not tonight. I keep thinking that they're playing tonight. Playing games tonight. I think the matchup between Seattle's defense versus the Giants' offense really plays in their favor. I the weakness for the Seattle defense is their the defensive line, and the Giants' offensive line is pitiful. They struggled last year stopping the run. Well, guess what? Saquon is, I don't know if he's even going to be playing this week. So this is a great matchup in terms of the Seattle defense versus the Giants offense. I think really the question boils down to, and if you want to talk about the Giants offense, I just don't, because I think Danny Dimes is Danny Nichols to me, and that offensive line is pitiful, and without Saquon they just look terrible. That's pretty much how my thoughts on the Giants O-line, but the Giants defense is what's going to be able to really be the key to this game. Can they stop the three-headed monster, Metcalf, Lockett, Jackson Smith? Can they get to Geno Smith? Can they sack him? Can they create pressure? And will that pressure come from more than just Dexter Lawrence and Leonard Williams? Can Thibodeau? I think it's
Thibodeau.
Can Thibodeau emerge? Like
Do anything?
I don't know.
Yeah, they took 2 picks in the top 7 of that 2022 draft, and you touched on them both there. Their O-line absolutely stinks, and part of that is Evan Neal, who they expected to be a plug-and-play right tackle opposite of Andrew Thomas. He's been unbelievably bad. Absolutely, without a doubt, needs to be moved to guard. Other than that, that O-line is really bad. I mean, John Michael Schmitz, the rookie at center, has been playing better. But without a healthy group, an injured O-line doesn't work in the NFL. There's not enough stud linemen in the league to have backups that are good enough to play. So until the Giants get Andrew Thomas back, and honestly, until they get Saquon Barkley back, there's nothing to talk about with this offense.
Unfortunately, there's just not. I mean, that offense is just putrid. It's just simple as that. The line surprised me. It's a pick'em. Straight up.
Yeah, when I was going through thinking about the teams I was going to pick today, I was very excited to take the Seahawks. I thought the spread was going to be 3-4 in that range, and I was going to jump all over the Seahawks. I really liked it. At a pick'em, I hate it being a pick'em. I hate when my model in my mind is wrong. Casey put it up there before I was done with my spiel, and I am going with the Seahawks, but I hate the line.
Is it because you're afraid of what Vegas knows? Is that the problem?
It doesn't make sense to me. There's no way that Giants team, that Saquon-less Giants team I just watched against the 49ers should be a pick'em against the Seahawks. I guess they're counting home field for a whole bunch there in MetLife. Maybe they expect, Matt Breida to have a throwback game, but I'm taking the Seahawks pretty confidently here.
I'm also taking the Seahawks. I couldn't bet against Geno Smith, but I believe you're right. There's something wrong with this being a pick'em game. That's why I'm really nervous about the matchup between the Giants defense and the Seattle Seahawks offense. I feel like this is pointing to there being possibly a lot of pressure involved, a lot of sacks. I don't like it. I don't like it when Vegas does this to me, but at the same time, I think a lot of people are sleeping on Seattle, so we'll see.
Last week I tried to get on the same train as Vegas. My model was showing that the Dolphins should have been anywhere from a 40 to 50 point favorite against the Broncos, but Vegas said 6.5 for the Broncos. I said, okay, give me the Broncos plus 6.5. And boy, that was one of the worst bets of my life. So this week, I'm sticking with my gut. I'm sticking with my model, and the Seahawks are going to win.
Yeah, my gut has not been very, very kind to me as of late this season. But moving on to the final game and the Thursday night game, Lions versus the Packers. This is actually a very underrated matchup. I really like this matchup.
I love it. Anytime you can get divisional opponents on primetime television, sign me up. The teams have no love lost. There's probably going to be a scrum or two in the trenches, and that's just the kind of football I love. The NFC North and the AFC North play a very similar brand of football, so I love watching these teams play.
Yeah, and it's a rematch of last season. It's that final game where it came down to the very end, and the Lions ended up getting the win, kicking the Packers out of the playoffs. It's back in Lambeau. Things are a little different now. No Aaron Rodgers. Jordan Love's there. The Packers defensive line healthy. Packers offensive line not healthy. Weapons, Aaron Jones and Christian Watson. Maybe
Both upgraded to questionable today. So they were not with the group that didn't practice. Encouraging signs that both of them will play this week.
And then I think for me, this game could come down to Christian Watson playing or not, because we just haven't seen the Packers offense function without him in it since week 1. I think that's what you said, right? Week 1. So
yeah, he didn't play week 1, but he hasn't played yet this year.
Yeah, so I mean that could be the key. That could be the biggest difference in this game. Because I mean, Jordan Love, he looks kind of legit, doesn't he?
Yeah, no, I alluded to it in the last week's talking points, but I really like Jordan Love. What Jordan Love has been able to do, keeping your composure against the Saints. Obviously, they were at home, but to be a home underdog and really keep your composure as a rookie starter, I really like what Jordan Love has been able to show me, and he's been able to do it with a depleted receiving core and depleted weapons. When Rodgers was there, all we heard about was the lack of investment in the weapons, the lack of investment in the offense. Well, that lack of weapons has taken a massive hit with Christian Watson and Aaron Jones not being at Jordan Love's disposal. This is worse weapons than we saw with Rodgers in the back end of his career, and Jordan Love's winning football games. So I'm encouraged, and if I'm a Packers fan, I'm super happy. A.J. Dillon is my main question with the Packers offense right now. We said Aaron Jones might be coming back this week. When Aaron Jones plays, A.J. Dillon obviously takes a massive hit on production, resorts to almost exclusively a goal line and short yardage back. Well, last week without Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon only rushed for 3 yards a carry. And the Packers had the ball first and goal at the 1, and 3 plays in a row ran the ball, none of which went to A.J. Dillon. I'm wondering if A.J. Dillon's in the doghouse for some reason, because that disappearance, especially with Aaron Jones out last week, doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
Yeah, that is very puzzling. I'm just double checking here. It could just be because Green Bay got down 17-0. I mean, that does kind of hurt their chances to really run the football a whole lot. But I mean, I'm gonna chalk it up to that. I don't think it's because he's in some sort of doghouse. I know they ran the ball 26 times, but 9 of those attempts were Jordan Love scrambling, I'm pretty sure. So I can't really fault him for not getting the numbers. Now, the Saints' defense is pretty darn good. So there's also that mixed with it. I think Derek Carr going down had a lot to do with them being able to come back. I don't think Jameis Winston was 10 of 16 and 101 yards, but
Jameis Winston led a game-winning drive. Let's not bash the good name of Mr. 30-30 Jameis Winston here. That man led a game-winning drive at his first drive in 2 years, and they just shanked the field goal. I'm so excited to watch Jameis Winston play football for the next couple weeks. I obviously want Derek Carr back. I had a lot of high expectations for the Saints. But Jameis Winston's going to be fun to watch.
That's fair, Jacob. That's fair. That's fair. I think. Do you think that do the Packers deserve the win that they got this last weekend? Do they deserve it?
Anytime, if you're down multiple scores in an NFL game and you come back, kudos to you. You're playing professionals, even if it's backups. I have a very hard time finding anything to knock Jordan Love and the Packers about coming back, from multiple scores down against a pretty good team that, up until a Derek Carr injury last week, I expected to make the playoffs. I don't know. I certainly don't take anything away from this Packers team. I think what they've done to start this year is very impressive.
I would agree with you. I would usually agree with you. However, when you look at the teams that they've played so far, the Bears dysfunctional, terrible franchise. The Falcons, they lost to them. They let them come back and beat them in the fourth quarter. And the Saints, they were losing, like I said, 17-0, and then didn't score until the fourth quarter until Derek Carr went down.
Underdogs in two of those 3 games, though. This team was not expected to be good, and now we're talking about them as a contender in the NFC North. I think the Packers have really flipped the script already just 3 weeks into the season. And not necessarily the fact that they're going to be competing for the NFC or anything like that, but just the way that we're talking about them. The respect we're showing Jordan Love, the respect we're showing those weapons and that defense. I think the Packers have really earned a little bit of this to start the year.
Yeah, and I see in the chat that you play who you play. I get that. It's just I'm not ready to crown them yet. Even if they beat the Lions, I still think there's a lot of question marks with the Lions. They play the Lions and they play the Raiders, then the Broncos and the Vikings. I don't really trust them. There's just a lot of teams that I don't really trust on their schedule. And I don't know if I can take them legitimately as... I will say that they're contenders in the NFC North if they beat the Lions. But if they lose to the Lions... And by the way, the Lions defense, they surprised me. Obviously, against Atlanta, 183 total yards and 6 points is nothing to scoff at. I mean, if they lose to the Lions, I just don't know if I can truly believe in this team. Now, what I will say, what I do believe in is their defense. Their defense is pretty spectacular. I think they're one of the top teams in the league in getting pressure. I think they are one of the top teams in sacks. That defensive line is pretty good. Rashawn Gary, Kenny Clark, Devontae Wyatt. Those guys are awesome. But against this Lions offensive line, will they be able to get the pressure home? I think that's the key. Can they get enough pressure on Jared Goff? And if they can, I think it'll be a close game. I think it'll be a good game. But if they can't, I think Jared Goff is just going to have a field day.
Yeah, I mean, you pointed to the record that the schedule the Packers have played so far certainly hasn't been the best. I mean, their 2 wins are over a Jameis Winston Saints and then a Bears team that we've already talked about to exhaustion here, and this is their biggest test by far. Jared Goff has been playing very well. I know he broke that no interception streak last week, but when he hasn't been under pressure this year, when he's had the ability to stand in the pocket, he's been lights out. The ability to find those weapons outside of Amon-Ra St. Brown, the use of Khalif Raymond this last week. Jared Goff feels very comfortable in that offense and in Detroit in general. I think this offense is going to take another step, especially now that they've found a true number 2 outside of Amon-Ra in Sam Laporta. I know I wanted Sam Laporta to come to the Bengals and be our tight end of the future, and he's just been absolutely unbelievable in Detroit to start his rookie year. He's tight end 2 in fantasy. And I think we all could have seen this coming because you know where he played college football? He played college football for the Iowa Hawkeyes. The Iowa Hawkeyes, as everyone knows, is tight end university. George Kittle, Hawkinson, Noah Fant, Sam Laporta now, obviously Dallas Clark years back. Those Iowa tight ends just come in the league and they produce. And Sam Laporta is making that school proud and making that heritage proud and being another great tight end out of Iowa. He's just been unbelievable.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, Jacob. I wish I knew that he would be this good. Otherwise, I would have been banging the table for him to be picked in the first round. I thought maybe they could get away with the second round. He was borderline, right? Definitely deserved to be picked early because he is just balling out. Top 5 tight end as of right now. He's really good in the run blocking department. Finds the open space. He is the safety and security blanket once Amon-Ra St. Brown is covered. I think he's good. He's good, man.
I don't think there's any confusion that this offense does still run through Amon-Ra St. Brown. Anytime Jared Goff's in trouble, anytime stuff starts to fall apart, boom, boom, boom. There's 3 completions to Amon-Ra St. Brown. Boom, there's Amon-Ra St. Brown for a 20-yard corner. He's everywhere, and he's open all the time, And I think he's one of my favorite players in the league outside of Cincinnati because he's just so fun to watch. I mean, that man's just electric.
Yes, he is electric. And Jahmyr Gibbs, are we going to see him finally break one?
I mean, he finally gets another shot to be the lead back. He gets 17 carries, just 80 yards. Just wasn't getting it done. Didn't have that burst that we expected. But the part that really gets under my skin and the part that really confuses me is you drafted Jahmyr Gibbs 12th overall because of what he can do out of the backfield as a receiver, and he has one catch. His one catch, and that one catch is on his lone target. I just don't get it. The way the Lions have been using Jahmyr Gibbs to start this year just doesn't make sense. I understand that he hasn't been incredibly productive when he's running between the tackles and you don't want to wear him down and get him hurt. But boy, at some point you have 4 years of a guy you drafted in the first round. You got to use him.
Yeah, and to be fair, Jacob, I think he probably would have been targeted more if the first and second reads weren't always open for the Lions. Which
right.
Amon-Ra and Sam Laporta were targeted 12 and 11 times, caught the ball 9 and 8 times for 200 yards for the most part. So, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say like I'm defending the coaching staff and not targeting him more. They should definitely get him more involved, like wheel routes, do something like screens, anything to get him out in open space. Maybe they'll get to that at some point, but I mean, some of it is because they love to go under center, and maybe it's just a little harder to get good routes from a running back when you're having to fake the handoff first, check to see if you need to block someone off the edge, then you're out in the flat, and that's about it. That's
certainly right, and I definitely agree, and that was part of the reason why people graded their draft so poorly, is because taking a running back with their offense, where last year they just plug and played Jamal Williams and he led the league in touchdowns, it didn't really make a whole lot of sense because you think anyone can do that, essentially. It's kind of like the quarterback in San Francisco. When you have a line that good and a quarterback that doesn't make mistakes, the running back's going to work. And then when they took a guy 12th overall, you think, hey, maybe they're going to change this up. Maybe they're going to use that as a completely new weapon with this new player, but that just hasn't been the case. They're running the same old offense, and it looks good. The offense is being productive. The passing attack is good. The receivers are good. We just talked about the tight end, who's been phenomenal. I just want more out of Jahmyr Gibbs because we've seen flashes of it, and he can be so special.
Agreed. I'm waiting. I'm patiently waiting for that day. But
we're going to come on here one of these Wednesdays soon, and it's going to be 100 rushing and 100 receiving on like 30 touches for Jahmyr Gibbs, and we're going to throw a whole party.
Yeah, it's going to be a great day on this show when that happens. But until then, I'm going to continue to look at his props and say, yeah, that makes sense. He can get over 35 yards this game. And let me see. Is there... Since I brought up the props and whatnot, I was just looking at Betfred. They do not have rushing props right now, which is kind of surprising. They have receiving props.
I was going to say, but they do have receiving props, and Amon-Ra St. Brown 80+ is plus 110, and I love it. I think what we just talked about is exactly what I mean. Jared Goff's going to be able to stand in that pocket and be protected by this Lions offensive line. This Packers pass rush has not been tested yet this year, and this is a really good offensive line in Detroit. I think 80 yards. I think Amon-Ra St. Brown might sleepwalk to 80 yards.
Sleepwalk, huh? I was looking at Jaden Reed. 40 yards for minus 110. That seems like that could be good value there. I'm just double checking.
Jaden Reed had a monster game 2 weeks ago and then seemed to fall out of the plans last week. Dropped 2 balls early in the game, but I like that pick as well. His target share has been unbelievable. They seem to really want to get him the ball.
Yeah, I mean, 20 targets, it's pretty good. It depends on if Christian Watson plays. If he plays, then I'm probably not taking that bet. But like I said, New Orleans, they have a really good defense, man. I just don't know. The Detroit defense last week, I think they just went all in on stopping the run and then getting after the quarterback, and it just completely derailed the Falcons and what they were able to do. I just don't think that they're going to be able to do the same thing with this Packers team. I don't think it's going to work. And again, I'm probably going to take Jaden Reed. That's what I'm probably going to do. I like Sam Laporta's too. It's minus 130 for 40.
A tight end is
45
just
plus
so peaks and valleys of a tight end. I just don't trust it. There's one tight end whose props bets I love taking, and it's Travis Kelce. Even guys like George Kittle have been doing it in the league forever. They're so sporadic because it just takes 4 or 5 catches to get it done, and that comes in 6 or 7 targets. Doesn't take a whole lot to get tight ends going. That's why those props scare me. Sam Laporta's been great, though, through 3 weeks. If he can keep it up for another week or two, I'll be all aboard the Sam Laporta prop train.
62 yards a game. Does that interest you?
That's a high number, and I love it, and he's been great. I just need it for more than 3 weeks before I'm going to jump on a tight end's prop bets.
All right. Well, that concludes all the games that we have for this week. Jacob, any closing thoughts before we wrap up the show?
Well, if you're going to give me the floor for closing thoughts, I'll spend a minute or two on college football from this last weekend. 2 big wins for my teams. Ohio State going into Notre Dame and beating the Fighting Irish on the last play of the game. I mean, that was just unbelievable. I've never been happier. And then Alabama, after a loss and a bad game against USF, getting back on track against Ole Miss. I think the boys are back, Casey. I think we're looking at a Crimson Tide Buckeyes national championship, and I'm just not going to know what to do for 60 minutes.
Oh, Jacob. Oh, sweet, sweet Jacob. Alabama. I mean, it was Ole Miss. Ole Miss always they always just mess it up in the end. And then the Notre Dame thing, listen, I'm somewhat of a Notre Dame fan. And I've had a take about Notre Dame. I thought they were a dark horse team. If they have 10 guys on the field, or if they don't have 10 guys on the field, is what I'm trying to say. If they have 11, if they have a full team out there, I think that ball game goes just a little differently. Not a whole lot.
And we'll never know. And we'll never know.
The one thing I will say, I was really hoping that they weren't going to kick the field goal at the end. So just so I could cover. Or I didn't want to push. I just wanted to cover. Say I was right, but nope. Ended up being a push. Unfortunate.
Jack Butler just asked in the chats, any thoughts on Bengals Titans? I know that obviously wasn't one of our games of the week this week, but if we just wanted to briefly talk about that game, I'm very excited for the Bengals. I think it's a definition of a get-right game. It's exactly what I just talked about with the Chiefs playing the Bears last week. I think this Titans defense is not a far fall from that Bears defense. I think this is a very, very bad passing defense with a decent D-line just built around Jeffrey Simmons. If the O-line can continue to play well and Joe Burrow can have time, I think we're going to start to see this offense really start to roll this week, and the Bengals win. Lure up says Bengals by 14. I think that might even be a little bit low. I don't expect this Titans team to do anything against the Bengals defense. Derrick Henry looks like that dreaded 1,800 carries and 30 years old is starting to catch up to him. I don't think he's going to have a big game against a stout run defense. I think the Bengals win going away.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, Jacob. Bengals, they're in a really good spot against this team where they're really bad at protecting the pass. And on top of that, their offensive line stinks. They cannot protect Ryan Tannehill to save their lives. They can't get any push for Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry looks older. DeAndre Hopkins is not DeAndre Hopkins anymore. Burks has not really developed into that star receiver that they thought they were going to get when they traded away A.J. Brown. The Titans, to me, I've said it now for 3 or 4 shows, they feel like the most irrelevant team in the NFL. They're not in it because there's no news on them because they're not really any good. They're not really, doing anything bad or uncharacteristic. They're just bad. They just aren't a very good football team right now. And on top of that, 7 hours ago, I'm just looking at the ESPN headlines for them. Skoronski, their number 1 overall pick, suffered a ruptured appendix.
Yeah, no, definitely wasn't good. He had to miss the first couple weeks of the year. I think he's supposed to be coming back soon, though.
Oh, I thought this just happened. Did it?
No. He had appendectomy right before the start of the season.
Gotcha. Well, still,
yeah, it's hard to be a team like that, and you take a guy not first overall, but for your first pick in the first round to come play guard and bolster a really, really ugly part of your team, and then a freak injury like that happens and you can't claw back. It's unfortunate to see for a guy that I really liked coming out of Northwestern. But Casey, the one thing I want to say about the Titans, even though I think the Bengals are going to roll them this week and they're going to be sitting at 1-3, I'm not counting them out of the AFC South. I don't think the Texans are going to keep this up. And I don't think the Jags have shown me anything to say that they're going to have a stranglehold in this league. Why can't the Titans win the AFC South at 8-9?
No, come on. No.
I think it's less crazy than you think. It's less crazy than you think.
Do you think the Titans have a chance against any of the teams in the AFC South?
Yes. I think the Titans could absolutely beat the Jags and the Texans. And the Colts.
I just have to disagree.
Absolutely.
I have to disagree.
They just beat the Chargers, who are better than all three of those teams.
Yeah, but they're the Chargers. They just always manage to lose ball games right at the end, and or in the first place just keep it close. Like, they should have mollywopped them. They played down to their guys a lot, or played down to their opponents quite a bit. I think the Titans are just bad, Jacob. They're just irrelevant. They're just bad. But that's just my opinion on it. You should let us know in the comments down below.
I don't think they're good. Hold on. I don't want you thinking I think the Titans are good. I just think the rest of the AFC South might also be very bad.
Oh. I think the Colts...
Are the Texans good, or are the Jaguars just a joke? Like, I think that's something that people... We're giving the Texans a little bit of credit here. I think the Jaguars might be...
How could you go from early on in the season saying that this could be a number 1 seed type team to now
they didn't lose to the Texans by 20 when I said they could be a number 1 seed.
They're down some guys. They're hurt, Jacob. So what?
It's true. So are the Titans. So are the Titans. So are the Texans. So are the Colts.
Oh, come on.
Texans are missing 3 starting linemen. The Colts don't have their starting quarterback. Everyone's banged up, Casey.
Everyone's banged up. That's just, you know what? I'm going to leave. I am going to end this show on that note. Titans, Jacob thinks that they're going to win the AFC South. I guess that's not a terrible take.
Not what I said. Twisting my words.
What do you mean? That's what you said. You think they're going to win the AFC South. They have a good chance to win at 8-9.
AFC South. They can win the AFC South.
I just can't believe you think 8-9 can win the AFC South.
I don't know that it's going to be much better than that if the Jaguars are going to lose to the Texans by 20.
If the Titans win their division, Casey will ship you a dozen Gold Star Conies. I might do that.
At least make them Skyline. If the Titans don't win their division, ship me Gold Star. Give me the punishment.
The Bengals have not played great since partnering with Skyline. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I have the thoughts that I went back to Paycor for the Ravens game and I got Skyline and it tasted way better. Those are my only thoughts.
And they lost that game though, Jacob.
They lost games with Gold Star. They went 2-14 with Gold Star as the sponsor.
I don't know about that. I don't know if you can really blame Gold Star for that one. I don't know.
You would have never had Joe and Jamar without the pains of the Gold Star Bengals.
Pains. It pains me to think that you would be a Skyline guy after all this time, all the memories we shared at Skyline and how terrible that place was when we went.
The one empty trip to the empty Gold Star, just a memorable occasion.
Yeah, that was better. It was great food, great service. Anyways, I think this is the end of the show. Thank you all for watching. I know I have been not great tonight. I've been all over the place, but I'll get better. I'll get better, and we'll have a better show as we continue on through the season. And go Notre Dame, go Bengals, go whoever Ohio State's playing, go whoever Alabama's playing. Go Reds. Boo Cubs. Yeah, we got to really boo the Cubs.
What is it? White Sox, Braves, Mets?
Yes.
White Sox, Braves, Mets.
Which
we can still do this, Casey. We're just not breathing. We're not dead. We're just not breathing.
The Mets actually won, so that's good. That's good.
Game 1. They
one.
played 2 today. When's the second? Is the second one going on right now?
I'll check. I'll double check.
Oh, I thought you had it pulled up. My bad. We can let these poor folks go. That wraps up the show. Thank you guys for tuning in. We appreciate it. Went off the rails quite a bit today, but that's why we do this, because we like talking ball. We like talking to each other, and we appreciate you guys for listening. So thanks for tuning in. Casey, if you have anything else to say.
Nope. See you, everyone.